Now being the time in the hour, the regular board meeting of the Vallecitos Water District. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could I have our gold award winner, Eric, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eric. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Okay, we have the introduction of new employee. Do we have the paddles ready? You got a copy agenda.
So, thank you guys very much. We have Mike Arthur. He actually started on the district on Monday, just 2 days ago, as our new financial analyst. He previously worked for Scripps Research Institute for the last 5 years. He's married to Donna. They have 2 children, Ryan and Justin. And in his free time, he enjoys watching his 2 boys play baseball, sports, and in Las Vegas.
The boys play Las Vegas.
Actually, he played in Las Vegas a couple years ago in 110-degree heat.
Oh, no.
Nice.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you.
And what did you do for Scripps Oceanography?
I was actually at Scripps Research Institute, and I was a financial data analyst there. I also worked for the cities of Chula Vista and cities of Carlsbad as well.
Did you ever meet Jacques? Jacques? No?
No.
The French policeman or the Jacques Cousteau?
Either one.
Inspector Clouseau.
Inspector Clouseau.
Not my dog.
Not my dog.
You ask any questions? No? Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Bridget for helping me through this process, and then Tom and John for acclimating me with the city. And I'd like to thank Dennis, who unknowingly gave me his parking spot for 2 days, and it helped a lot with the rain yesterday when I had to run out to get to my car. So, thank you, Dennis.
So who do we blame if it doesn't work out?
Tom.
Always number 2. Number 2 always.
Yeah.
Congratulations, welcome aboard. And now I'll move back up to adopt the agenda for the regular meeting of September 17th. Need a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping on track. Okay. And now we're going to have Lisa come up to acknowledge the safety award winner.
If you'd come down to the chair, if you'd present this to him. Eric, where are you at? Come on up. Eric's Assistant Collection Worker 3, supervisor in the department, runs a crew. Annually, you did give out some awards at the last board meeting. Eric couldn't be here, but we have a nomination process. The employees can nominate each other for safety-related awards. What Eric came up with, you may recall, we bring probably a couple thousand kids through this yard every year, and one of the things we show them is the camera and how it works in the sewer. Well, when you've got 30 or 40 little herding cats standing around a 3-foot wide opening in a manhole, wanting to look down at the camera, it was very risky. So what Eric came up with to keep any of the kids, much less the employees falling down there, was a great plastic lid that he would put over the top of it so the cables and everything could go through it, so you could still visually look at it. They could walk right up to it and look at it without risking falling in. So that's something that didn't get the nozzle in, they get all the power cables through it, but it minimizes the risk or practically eliminates it, so we don't lose one of the kids down to the manhole while we're doing it. Great safety suggestion on behalf of Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Welcome. All right. Yes? We'll do that.
And just so you guys know, it was a tabletop discussion, honestly, and there was a few of us, like the manager here, Ed was there, Lisa, we were all talking about it, and I just kind of just pushed it on through it. But it is a great safety award for anybody, not just the kids, it's for anybody that comes up, the adults, and everybody that takes it forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. You want to come on up, Lisa? Now what we have is the award. Lisa will introduce the program to you, plus then she'll bring up the winners. This is for the annual awards that are given out at Encina on behalf of compliance.
Mr. President and members of the board, it is my honor today to announce the Gold Award winners for 2013. The businesses in San Marcos, they play a significant role in protecting our water quality, the environment, and the well-being of the wastewater operators in our region, not just the wastewater treatment plant operators, but also the guys working in the lines, out in the field. It protects everybody. By being 100% compliance with their industrial wastewater discharge permits issued by the Encina Wastewater Authority, businesses can avoid discharging corrosive substances that can impact the collection system, rust out all the lines, things like that. Also releasing chemicals to the sewer that can injure the staff, upset the wastewater treatment plant process, and cause a violation of discharge permits, and negatively affect aquatic life if the chemicals make it all the way to the ocean. So it's a very important subject. The Encina Wastewater Authority and Vallecitos reward businesses that have demonstrated perfect compliance with all their permit requirements with the prestigious Gold Award. These businesses will receive recognition in Encina's upcoming pre-treatment newsletter and also in the upcoming splash. And I'm proud to say we tweeted them, and they said they've never been tweeted before, so they were tweeted today. And
Did it hurt?
they feel very hip. And also on our Facebook page, just letting the whole community know how proud we are of them. And as a former Encina wastewater inspector for 10 years, I know how much of a challenge it was to always comply with the permits, because we would show up unannounced and just say, we're here to sample your wastewater, better look good. So it's a real honor to have 100% compliance. So at this time, I would like to invite up Valeria Derry, who's receiving a one-year Gold Award. This is Tony Magami, Assistant Plant Manager, Quality Assurance Manager, and he's here to accept the award. Oh. And we also have Hugh Circuits. This is Jerry Hughes. He's the president of Hughes Circuits, also at San Marcos, and they're receiving their one-year Gold.
Oh, she's fast.
We also have Hughes Metal Finishing, but I don't believe they're here today. So congratulations to all. Oh, you got the wrong one?
Oh, it's the wrong Hughes. There's two Hughes.
That's funny.
Me too.
Post it in.
Thank you, Al. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Lisa, I just, before you go, or maybe before the gentleman leave, I think I can understand Hollandia Dairy's challenge, but I'm not sure that I understand what the circuits, Hughes Circuits, or the metal finishing, what are the possibilities, and what are they putting in the waste?
You can have things from heavy metals, cyanide, acids, bases, very corrosive things, very potentially toxic things, but I know because I inspected. The Hughes Circuits is they were just exceptional.
So
one
where
of
do
our
they
best.
put that?
Excuse me?
What's their alternative, I guess?
Well, what they have to do is they have to do treatment processes to get those, like the metals, for example, out of the water so it doesn't go down the drain. And then, are they taken off for recycling?
That's right. Actually, the waste is created from the wastewater with the metal hydroxide sludge. So it kind of looks like a brown lead, and that goes to Inspiration Mines in Arizona to be recovered for copper. And then as well as we have nickel plating solutions and cupric chloride solutions that are containerized instead of off for recycling.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, thank you.
The pH also has to be adjusted up or down to make sure it doesn't corrode the line.
This is what we just.
I really appreciate some understanding, because I think we, as the ordinary person, don't understand what everyone is doing to try to keep our rosé. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to oral communications, I don't see any. So we don't have to do that, or the notice, correct? Consent calendar, all in one motion, 1.1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Any discussion for a second?
Oh, what item?
On the warrants list?
1.2, yep.
Let me get just on it. Just curious, I noticed there's a lot of items under, with the description, closed account refund. I think I can kind of figure out what that means, but I just don't recall ever seeing them before on any of the warrants list.
We've called them different things. We're trying to settle on a consistent name
Okay.
over time. I think we finally found it. What this is customer accounts. When they're going to close their account, they have a credit balance, and we refund them their credit balance.
That's what I thought it was, but what was it called before?
Reimburse.
Customer reimbursement.
Customer balance, customer reimbursement, and it sounded like we were reimbursing a customer for something else
Yeah.
rather than closing the account.
Okay, thanks. That's what I figured, just hadn't seen it before.
I asked that when I first came on board too, what they were, but it seems like we had a lot this time. Is everyone just shutting down so they don't use water?
I think.
That's a lot.
I think it's the time of year. I think people move in and move out around the beginning of the school year.
Oh, so this is typical. Yeah.
Maybe for the time of year, yeah, not month to month.
Because usually it's just a couple. Thank
One
you.
of them, one of them is for San Leo Hills. They just don't need water anymore, or?
That may be that they were part of the
That was
development.
probably development, same with
Yeah.
Ryland Homes.
Okay.
They put it in their name and they put a deposit, then when they sell it, they close the account and they get whatever's left before the homeowner gets it.
Okay. Thank you.
So was that 2 years of heavy discussions to come up with a proper name for it, and now we settled?
It was more discussions in passing, as each kind of one came. Not a lot of staff time was devoted.
Thank you.
Good answer.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, moving along to action items, a drought update.
Yes, as promised, the last board meeting, second board meeting of each month, we're going to be updating you on a drought, on monitoring usage and such, particularly from the standpoint of what the State Water Resources Control Board is interested in. And I've got last time we met, we just had through July, but now we've got numbers through August. Still not that telling because August is the month that we declared the drought. September's going to be the real telling numbers because these August numbers were for August billing, so a lot of it was July usage before the drought kicked in. But we wanted to go ahead and update you on some of these numbers. These graphs look familiar, but they actually have an additional month of data in them since the last time. And this first one is, again, what the State Water Resources Control Board requires us to report to them, which, and we did the reporting already. We're pretty timely on reporting. So for August, we reported, just a few days into the month of September, we reported August to the State Water Resources Control Board. And they are interested in not just August 2014, but we also have to report August 2013, because they will look at the change from August to August. And we actually had, if you can see the red bars that you see are the current year, 2014. The blue bars are the same month previous year. The last 2 months, June and July, we had a little bit of a drop, and then we had a pretty significant drop in August in anticipation. And that probably was the impact from the State Water Resources Control Board declaring their emergency regs and an awareness of customers. It's about a 9%, between a 9 and 10% drop from August to August. So that's good news.
Could I ask you a quick question, Tom?
Yes.
I try to forget this date of this month, but we emptied out the big tank this year to clean it and then refilled it. What month was that in? And is that enough water to show any variation of what we purchased?
Ed?
Well, Ed can do that. Now, it won't actually show in the water consumption, Director Martin, because what we report is consumption, not just what we bought or what we have in storage.
This is
This one's
production.
This is production.
Yeah,
Okay.
this will show. So how much, just wondering how much water did we actually did?
You really
What was the
won't-
change in storage?
It won't make.
You really won't see much of anything because we bring that tank down to the lowest level possible, and then we have to drain just the last couple of feet, and then when we refill it, it all balances out by the end of the month, so you really don't see much. Plus, we have that other big one that's sitting right next to it that balances it out.
How much water is typically in that tank?
Depending on the season, right now, we're more like holding it around 70% to 80% full, so that tank's probably got, 30 to 35 million gallons in it during the summer. But in the wintertime, we have to bring it down lower. Demand's less, so it takes a lot longer to get the water through there. We just lose our water quality, so we bring the level down to maybe 50%.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry, Tom.
No worries. It is on.
My
You can
TV
change the
does
slide for me.
this.
Thank you.
Sometimes,
Yeah, no. Also looking at, that was month to month, but then this graph looks at year to date, calendar year to date, 2013 compared to 2014, still higher, because most of the months in 2014, we didn't have a drought declared, so a little bit higher. If you go to the next graph. And this is a little bit busy, but this is the gallons per capita per day. So starting next month, we're going to have to report this type of stuff to the State Water Resources Control Board. So that's why I'm presenting it to you as well. This looks at two things. It looks at the more long-term SBX 7 that was signed into law by then Governor Schwarzenegger in 2009, and it said by 2020, you need to cut back 20%, and we established a target of 159.4 gallons per capita per day, and that's that horizontal, the middle horizontal line. It's supposed to be purple, but it looks blue, 159.4. So we're below that. We're already meeting that when you consider the rolling average, and that's fine to meet that target. But the spirit of the State Water Resources Control Board regulations, even though we're not bound to conserve to 2013, there's a lot of mention about 2013. That's why I say in the spirit of. So in the spirit of that, we also look to 2013 as a base year, and that's what that 154 gallons per capita per day is. And we're still not under that yet, but we came down quite a bit on a rolling average. I think it's 155.1, the rolling average for August. And if you look at the raw data for, not the rolling average, but just the month of August, we actually dropped quite a bit from 194 to 175.7. And that's, August was even hotter than July, so that's a lot of effort and conservation, no doubt. Yes.
Quick question there. Your numbers for population, 2010, obviously, we had a census.
Mhm.
Those numbers came out in 2011.
Yeah.
So since then, where are the numbers coming from? Probably Sandag.
That's correct.
And everyone's bound to use Sandag's numbers.
Yeah. Sandag provides projections in intervals, and then we have to, our GS department actually looks at the specific boundaries and has to do estimates to fit it into our boundaries, and then we just interpolate in between. So that's why I don't even like looking at that, because it's a real estimate. And you'll see we look at meters, because that's a better estimate. We actually know what meters were billed each month. So it's not the most accurate way to look at conservation, looking at gallons per capita per day, but it's global, and that's what the State Water Resources
And
Control
we're
Board
one of two agencies that is a growth agency.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's,
Well, the trick, and I was going to do it, I'll go ahead and bring it up now, is you're going to hear more and more of the GPCD, gallons per capita per day. Take it with a grain of salt, period. Consider Valley Center. Okay, Valley Center, I don't know how many meters they have, but the average lot is huge with a lot of demand, yet the population is small. So the GPCD could be 700, but that's just because of the fact they've got 10 acres and a grove and one family living there. Rancho Santa Fe or Santa Fe Irrigation District, same thing. You know how big all those lots over there, 12, 15,000 square foot homes, and they are lush. So they use a lot of water, big lots, but still one family. So when we were going through this, Director Evans heard a lot of that at the Water Authority. we push fairly hard for them not to use just GPCD, but go actually look at the demands. They didn't want to do that because they'd rather have a global number. But at least we got them to recognize the fact that people in San Francisco don't have a yard, they don't have a car, there's one person per apartment, so the GPCD are 75. Don't compare us to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So when you hear these numbers over the coming months, don't get too wound up in them. If they see that, well, we're not meeting our GPCD, well, we probably are, but it's a very interpretive thing.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, no worries, no worries. And a better measure is usage, usage, and like I said last time, that's what the intent was for the State Water Resources Control Board, to ask for usage from all the agencies, but some agencies up north still are not metering, and they just didn't have usage available. That's why we switched to production. But here in San Diego County, we're all metering, and so we have usage number, and this slide I put up here is something that the Water Authority compiled. And it's looking at usage rather than production, and what the difference is the change in storage. And so we look even better here is 11% drop from August to August 2013 to August 2014. As a region, a 6% drop in usage, but we dropped 11. So great job on our customer base for conserving. Go to the next one. And this one is same. This one is even a better measure because it takes growth into effect too. It says let's just look at the meters and carve the growth factor out of it. Again, looking at starting at 2013, this is a 12-month average, so it takes seasonality out of it. 2013's average consumption in units per meter, per base meter, was 14.4 units. So we've been increasing over that with this hot 2014, but since what is that, May? Bless you. Since actually July, July we started going down. Not until July, saw very small decreases, but a decrease just as well.
One question there again. We use 748 gallons
Right.
as our unit.
Yeah.
Escondido does not. They use 1,000 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were comparing apples to apples, Vallecitos to Escondido, they would look golden compared to us.
Yeah, you'd have to
They
do
normalize it.
You'd have to do a factor.
Yeah, they
They do?
normalize it to put us all on the same, yeah,
They put everybody at 748?
yeah.
The Water Authority. This is just us.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, they normalize it so everybody's on the same the same units.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Would you just refresh my memory on the definition of base meter?
Base meter is a 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter. It's
So
the
out of our,
smallest meter that we
The
would.
21,000 meters we have, or whatever it is, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but, so there's a certain, like 18 or 19,000 of them
Yes.
fall into
Yeah.
this, and the others don't.
Yeah, it's actually in this board packet too.
Right, I just, I
19,300
remember.
of them.
And they're 5/8
Or
or
three-quarters.
3/4?
Page 19 of the board packet. There's about 800 or so that are 3/4. Most of them are 5/8 inch, but they're the bulk
But
of
there,
the
are they
meters.
3/4 in here as well, or just?
Yes, this is
Okay.
3/4 and 5/8 inch meters.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. And, okay, the next slide. I presented this last time too, at the last board meeting, but I didn't have a full month of August. This is a full month. And these are calls that come in both to customer service and directly to our conservation staff. So we had a good number of calls for the first month, and it'll probably taper off, but going forward, I'll show the comparison, total calls in August compared to total calls in September, for example, the next time I report, but then I'll have the pie for September. But 77 calls are waste calls, people reporting in waste. That did not include what people did online. So we also had, in addition to this, people online reporting waste
Do you
as
know
well.
how many online?
I don't have that number. Yeah, there's not that many because towards the end of the month is when we had the form together. So September will be a better measure when I have a full month of data.
Will we be adding the online to the?
Yes, absolutely, we can do that. Yeah. Yeah, and then so the other ones were the 56 calls for just information about, hey, what level are we at? What does that mean? And then the 20 other calls were other districts calling or sort of calling for water audits and things like that. Okay, and then always the money, right? We're always concerned about, wow, if we conserve a lot, what is that going to do to our reserves? Right now, year-to-date, August, only 2 months into the fiscal year, and we still have a favorable budget variance in our net income. It's about 2,000, very close. We're very close to budget there. So not of concern yet. And this just shows where total water we have in total money we have in water reserves in our water fund, and what's available. So that first tranche is for the operating reserve that we hold. The second tranche is the replacement reserve, so floor. We need at least that much for replacement reserves. And then the third tranche is the deficit in our water capacity fund to cover that deficit. And so what's left over is what's available for replacement. And it's actually stated in our reserve policy, it's available for replacement or any other emergencies that come up like drought. So there's 6.4 million right now available. And some of that is, we do have maybe $1 million or two, probably less than $2 million in a current budget slated for replacement. So the bulk of that's still available if we have an unfavorable budget variance because of the extraordinary conservation efforts. So we'll keep track of that too as we go forward. And that's all I had for you, unless you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
No, just for information only.
Information only.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, 2.2.
Yes, you have before you today, we continue to work with any of the state, federal, or local agencies that will provide any type of financial relief from the Cocos fires. What you have before you today is a program that is administered through the California Disaster Assistance Act. It's a state-funded program. We had expenses, or recoverable expenses, of about $50,000 that we can go after to help recover some of that funding. And there is a standard, I called it a form/resolution because that's what it is. It's just a form, but they considered it a resolution. And it requires that the district assign people that would be representative on behalf of the district. So what we brought before you today is a resolution that would appoint myself and Tom to actually sign any documents or provide any information needed to get the funding. And then staff would recommend you approve it, and this is a resolution. Roll call.
Any questions of staff?
Move to approve as presented by staff.
We have a motion.
Second.
A second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to action item 2.3, public outreach and communication plan.
Okay, this begins on page 37 of your board packet. Well, I won't go back to the whole history. You guys just talked about this in the last board meeting. But staff was directed to bring forward, we did review the 4 that we did receive. They were from Katz & Associates, NV5, Jordan Dresden Communications, and Humanability. Once staff did go through that, they do have a criteria that they use. That's a weighted criteria. When we had initially put the RFP out, I included in that the verbiage that up to 3 could be interviewed if we actually had 3 that were responsive. Once staff did go through it, there was a very clear delineation between CATS and NV5 as fully compliant with the RFP. They responded to it in the way that we asked them to, break things out the way they did. The other 2 did not. They were non-responsive in several areas from that pure standpoint. So if CATS and NV5 scored an 80, and let's say 82, the others were down at like 40 and 37. So there was a distinct difference between the quality of what they provided. Again, if you look at the criteria that we went through it's the team, it's the qualifications, references, how they complied with the project approach and what they explained. The fee is the last thing that we use for criteria. We don't actually weigh it into the selection process because what always happens is by the time you're done and you selected, you negotiate a final scope. So what we have before you here, and I did include in the RFP, that would be 15 to 20 minute presentation on behalf of the consultants to the board. The board would have 30 minutes, give or take. Obviously, that's whatever the board decides to do. We clarify that for doing it. Funding is available for this as noted in the fiscal impact, and staff's recommendation would be that the board interview the top 2, which would be Katz & Associates Incorporated and NV5. That's what we'd recommend. I believe the board had considered having a special board meeting for this because it's going to take an hour, give or take, per company. So whether or not you wanted to start at 4, start at 3, because it's a specific thing just for the interviews. We would need to pick a date. They've indicated they need approximately 2 weeks to pull the presentation together. So if the board is amenable to that, I'll have Diane pull you afterwards to pick some dates, and then we would schedule accordingly. But like I said, based upon our review, the top 2 there was a pretty clear delineation between the other 4.
Okay. Do we have any questions of staff on the process which they've gone through before we talk about dates? Everyone agree the top 2 is fine? Thank you very much, staff. I think that was a great job you did for us.
Good, make it a lot
Saved
easier.
of time.
And again, I might just add that when they do these presentations, it's 3,000 to 5,000 plus to their company at least to do these things. So that's why if somebody just doesn't kind of cut it, there's really no sense in causing them the agony and the expense of trying to pull together a presentation.
And Katz and Associates and NV5 are both relatively local?
They are both local. I believe Jordan Dresden, they actually are out of Washington.
DC.
DC.
Wow.
So can you imagine that process of trying to come in and talk to the board and do and back and forth? And they only included 2 trips in their entire proposal, so fundamentally that wasn't going to work. But then Humanability, Katz, and NV5 are all San Diego County.
Are they, I know we don't want to really discuss the pricing at this point, but are they both within our realm of where our budget's at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Hernandez.
In the past, when I've been involved in this kind of thing, we've kind of established some questions that may be presented as that's going to take place.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Once
very
you
much.
guys come up, we already have a selection criteria for
Yeah.
you. We'll come up with some draft questions that are generic so that you ask both parties the same questions. We'll bring them in one at a time. The others will be asked to stay in the outside somewhere so they don't come in. And then when they do, we will switch. The board will have the latitude because it is an action item for discussion. You guys discussed it and you'll make a selection. We recommend you make a selection at that meeting.
Perfect.
Once that happens, then any feedback that would come out of the selection process, we would meet with them and negotiate a final scope, bring that back to you to actually approve it. To save some time, if the board were to give us direction to go ahead and negotiate and execute the contract, I wouldn't have to bring it back again. So I think we might recommend that, to do that, but that'll be the normal process. We'll give you a rating sheet, some general questions. The bulk of it's just gonna be your feedback of talking to them.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the greatest selection criteria for you. So if their board's good with that, what we'll do is, no action, we'll have Diane poll you to pick a date in a couple of weeks that works for all 5 of you, and then we'll just move forward.
Any other questions of staff? I have one. And for Jeff Scott, that doesn't really preclude us from asking any other questions we want to.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
It's just, okay, so we ask one something and don't ask the
Yeah.
other. It's not like an.
I mean,
No.
you know,
Follow-up questions?
Just follow-up questions, whatever you want.
dumb questions are not allowed, but otherwise, they're okay.
Can I have?
You know, it's like when we do the HR interviews, they will not allow me to ask
This-
questions unless it's on the script. Yeah.
Discriminatory questions
Yeah.
and things like that. You're not-
Thank you. So that's the direction? That's all you need was direction?
That's all he needed. We'll go ahead and pull, and we'll keep it moving. And before then, we'll give you a copy of the RFP, we'll give you a copy of the proposals they submitted, we'll give you all the backup information to it.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll settle on a date in the future?
Yes.
That's gonna do that rather than trying to do it now?
Well, I'll have Diane get hold of you.
Okay.
Seems to work better.
Okay.
Thank
Trying to
you.
save Diane. Okay, next one, G, General Manager Report.
Tom kind of gave you a lot of the insight on the water. It's been interesting. It's heating up. No pun intended. Yeah, couldn't miss that one. It's like number 2 over here. The water bond is moving forward at full steam. There's getting a lot of support. I think there's a lot more support to pursue it.
Question?
I was kidding with Al, but I really wanted to ask the question. So, being positive, optimistic, the water bond passes. And then how many years of litigation are we gonna have to go through before they can put a shovel in the ground?
Well, you know, who was it that wanted to kill all the lawyers, really? I have no doubt in my mind the litigation's already lined up and ready to roll. The trick is, a lot of the legislation on the Bay Delta Conservation Plan is already done, approved, and it's law. So a lot of this stuff, the Bay Delta, you gotta remember, the Bay Delta Conservation Plan was approved, the Bay Delta Conservation Act, back in 2009?
Yeah, it's-
2009, whenever they did it. So the funding and that whole thing with the Bay Delta and all that, that's actually already there. That process is already there. The state doesn't have to go back and talk to anybody. Once they get through the EIR, that's where the lawsuits are gonna come.
Yeah.
Is on the EIR. The water bond is a different animal. Just the approval of the water bond is not gonna be the cause of the lawsuit. It's gonna be the projects that are coming because of that water bond, which is
Right.
Sites Reservoir, Temperance Flats.
Yeah, okay.
That's when all those lawsuits will come.
Okay, very good.
But you gotta remember, the whole funny part of that whole thing is if we approve it and they get going, they build it is about a 10-year process. And then they have to have a history with a decision tree that says, okay, if all these things happen, then we'll determine how much water you get more reliably. Because remember, there's no extra water coming anywhere.
That's right. I
This
remember
is
that part.
water on a more consistent basis,
Yeah.
is what the whole thing is. So it's gonna be interesting, but there's gonna be a lot more, but there's a lot of support so far coming out for it. You also have, I believe, in front of you, the agenda for the joint workshop, our joint city council water district board meeting on the 22nd. That is at 6 o'clock at City Hall. It's in the Valley of Discovery room. Did we pass those out, Dan?
I do have it.
Okay, so it is before you, it's an update on what we talked about last year, plus some ongoing items that, how we work with the city on, and then a few topics for future discussion. So that's the agenda that got put together by the city manager and myself. As far as I know, everybody will be there. That's all I have.
I had a question on,
Director Sinella.
for the general manager, on the water bond. 7.4 billion, is
Yes.
that correct? I'm gonna throw out a dumb question. For 7.4 billion, could you build a pipe from Alaska to Southern California? And
Probably.
run it at the bottom of the ocean and
Probably.
have unlimited water coming into our
Probably.
system?
Probably.
Alaska
Yeah.
would be.
Well, I can tell you one project, if you ever, just go to the UC, I think it's UC Davis does it every year. They have, or I think it's an engineering thing that they do for the engineering students, civil students, which is a couple things. They build a superhighway, they design it, and the other is they design to bring a pipe from, what's the big water strait in Washington?
Columbus?
Columbus, the river.
Columbia.
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 Columbia. From the Columbia River all the way down into Southern California.
Huh.
So physically, you tell an engineer to build it, they'll build it.
And I think you could probably do it for $7.4
Probably.
billion. That's
Probably.
a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And the interesting thing is if you actually get into the nuts and bolts of the water bond, there's a 7.4 billion and there's certain allocations towards different projects, but it's not a full allocation to do all of them. The good part is they got, what do you call it, continuous funding? So not only do they have the act, but in the act is continual funding of it. So a lot of the stuff that has been done in the past, it's approved, but there's no money appropriated for it, and then they just withhold the funding for it on an annual basis. This one actually has that condition in it that it's continual funding for the project. But as I said, when I started here, they had just voted down the peripheral canal. 31 years later, we're voting on the peripheral canal again. That's all I have.
Mr. Scott?
You may have already heard about it, but CASA, the Board of Directors, has approved their participation as amicus curiae in the City of San Jose versus Smith Public Records case. That's the case that's pending before the California Supreme Court and involves the public's right to inspect public officials' private emails and text messages. So it's going to be, I think, a real far-reaching case. It was the consensus of the Attorneys Committee at CASA when we talked about this, that the Supreme Court will likely rule in favor of the plaintiffs for disclosure and against the public agencies for non-disclosure. So CASA is going to work with the League of City, also has a amicus request, so there'll be other public groups weighing in on this, and it should be interesting. But personally, I think it's going to have very far-reaching effects, because it's basically, if they rule in favor, it's going to say that your private emails are subject to inspection by the public. And your text, I mean, how incredible would that be? Because you're a public official. But that's how far this stuff is going. It's really, really disconcerting, frankly. I mean, it's a tough enough job anyway to be a public official compared to what it was 20 or 30 years ago, and now it's becoming tougher and tougher. So it kind of makes it's discouraging, I think, if you want to get into representation of public agencies.
Right.
That's all I have.
Great. Well, thank you. Encino Wastewater Authority Capital Improvements Committee.
You skipped.
Oh, what did I skip? Oh, I'm sorry, Santa County Water Authority. I didn't know we skipped.
Well,
I think it was.
I can't say anything because somebody might want to read it or listen to it later. I don't really have anything since the last meeting except, and I haven't kept up with the media clips, but I did want to say, just driving over here on the radio, I believe I was on PBS, they made a comment that this was the 1,000th day of the drought in California. And that was amazing. And then the guy got on, and I believe he was more, the reporter was from the Northern California area, but they asked about the levels, and it was interesting. He said, some of them are on level 4, and the perimeters are at level 3, like San Diego County. And I thought, aren't we still at level 2? But have I missed something, or did he just misspeak? But I thought, oh, very interesting. And then they talked about, the water is coming out of the ground in Napa. So did you hear this?
No.
Oh no, the earthquake up there actually opened up underground aquifers, and there is water in the Napa area entering the rivers, and some of them are like 30–40% more than they should have.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's
Wow.
groundwater that has come, there's some of them, they said they're just big bubbling things in the rivers.
They just fractured something and now it's, who knows where it's coming
The
from.
ground
Hey,
shift
that's
was happening.
fantastic.
On the other hand,
Is it
according
Ocean
to
Wells?
science, the platonic plates, which they thought were moving slower, are speeding up. So we will be having a lot more earthquakes all around the world.
We haven't had a good one in a while.
I know, I was worried about it, but isn't that interesting? I just thought that was interesting. And I read that in the paper on Napa, but
PBS, doom and gloom, who would have expected?
Yeah. But, see that
just
groundwater?
it's just very
Interesting.
interesting, and how does that play in? You talk about them wanting to do the Columbia River and that engineering project, but the Columbia River is having its own problems now too. So, who's to say Alaska's still gonna have water?
it all the way to Alaska.
Well, you know, they're melting down
The
there.
ice is melting.
That water's gonna be at the equator.
If it's gonna melt, we might as well get it, right?
Well, see, we just
Use it in the
eliminate,
meantime.
Mike, we eliminate the oil going through and we put in water. Clean it up, send the water down, everybody will be happy.
We need both.
I did have one other little thing to tell you, and you may be aware of it, and Dennis, they may have talked about it. On the 30th of this month, there's a tour of the desalination plant that's being put on through not B&O or A&E or something. And I believe most of us are gonna be gone.
Right.
But I'm wondering if that's something we want to check into. I'd like you, if you could, to find out if that's something we can offer any of the city council people at our meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
If we can tie in with them, the county water authority on that.
Just as an add-on to that, with CSDA happening at the same time, I would assume we're not the only ones in that situation, so maybe they'll have a makeup day. and do
Could
the
be.
same thing.
Right. I think this is their second or third one that's conflicted with something else.
There's all- yeah,
They had
it's-
one not too long
yeah.
ago. They did say wear, heavy boots and steel-toed shoes, because we're gonna go down in the trenches. I just thought maybe the council would be
I need the
interested.
safety team to go with me.
Yeah.
We're going to the trenches, I need the safety.
I'm gonna have them
Put that belt
helicopter me
on.
over.
You're gonna hook me up to that thing, I need the safety guys, and a prayer.
Anyway, that's
Okay.
the report until the end of the month.
Thank you very much. Now, Encino Wastewater Authority, Capital Improvements Committee.
Yes, well, after being dark for a couple of meetings, we had a very full agenda today. And the bathymetric survey of the outfall, yes.
What is that
And
again?
The bathymetric?
What is that?
Take a bath.
Well, I'm going to tell you what that means,
Thank you.
because we all ask the same question. We've had our permit, we just had it renewed here, and it had been a 50-year permit that needed to be renewed. As you can imagine, during that 50 years, all kinds of agencies have piled on and been created. And of course, with the renewal, there was a little bit of arm wrestling took place between what they wanted, what we wanted to provide. And the bathymetric survey is a survey, if you can believe it, as to where the pipe is, both horizontal and vertical for the full length, and it's going to be accomplished every 6 years to ensure that it doesn't move, or if it does, we'll know how much. So for the last 50 years, oh my goodness, who knows? It could be like a snake. So they're gonna send out an RFP for a team to go out and survey the pipe, both horizontally and vertical in its placement, and then capture that data, and then look at it again in 6 years, and then check the data to see if it's moved left, right, up, or down.
And if it has?
Oh, they haven't said anything about that.
Oh.
Well, no. Have a little check mark beside it, saying,
Yeah,
yes, it's
it moved.
moved. So that was one of the big items that we all had a good discussion about. Then, the SCADA software, we're upgrading our SCADA systems out there to try and automate many of the manual items that we are doing, and putting together a full methodology for our future work. And I'm going to repeat this because I always forget what SCADA actually is. Supervisory Control Data Acquisition. It's SCADA, and I always forget. I remember SCADA, but I don't remember the words, but that's what it means. This was a very interesting one, in as much like the RFP we have in the interview, there was a wide spectrum of participants. We had 8 participants. 4 of them were very right on board. And they rated them, and the other 4, pretty standard. If you spell the company you're proposing to, usually you're gone. And there's a lot of boilerplate that you put in, and that they weeded those items out. Then they went through, and they ultimately ended up with somebody in Cadwell, and very knowledgeable, done the work in seen it before, and so they're going to proceed. The variance in price is pretty dramatic, and we did quiz a lot about that, but again, for professional services, price is not part of the discussion. It is the services and the quality and the experience that the group brings, and in our case, in Cadwell's case, they've been there before, they know the product, and the low number, it wasn't he was bidding, but the proposal had never done this work before. I don't want to say never, but we're not familiar with wastewater treatment plants. So that was an interesting education, particularly for me who have been in these items. And then we're upgrading our safety improvements with shut-offs and containment. And we did have an incident here a month or 2 ago. We had a little fire out there, and we were in the process of looking at some of these systems anyway, so that if in fact, I can't remember the term he used, an explosion or a fire take place, it's contained in a small area, as opposed to presently the big vacuum cleaner sucks areas and can move. There is one containment stoppage, but with this we're going to have 4 or 5. So we're on the process of that. And then tomorrow we have our strategic planning workshop, and I don't know, are Dennis and Tommy going to
We'll
both
both be there.
Very good. Jim, I'm sure he's going to be there. So that'll be, and we're going to talk about where we're going, how we're going to get there, and what we're going to do once we do get there.
Excellent report. Any
Thank you.
questions? No, then we'll move to Policy and Finance Committee.
Well, I can't compete with that. They did have a meeting, but I was on vacation.
Well, that's good. That made it easy.
There's my report.
I think you went.
That made it better. You're on vacation.
How was your vacation?
Slideshow. I'll wait to bring it up. Director's reports on travel, conference, seminars. Anyone have any?
I'll simply say I was at COWU yesterday, and I enjoyed the presentation by the San Diego Chamber of Commerce, because I hadn't really connected the Chamber of Commerce with how it was involved with the water industry. So I learned a lot with that, and I also wanted to ask you, Director Martin, if the San Marcos Chamber is also, as they are supporting the water bond and those water issues, because I thought that was interesting, that tie-in. There were some other points I won't get into that I thought were also amusing, but I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot.
I can tell you, the San Marcos Chamber hasn't taken a stand because they've been asked to. If they're asked to, they probably would.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Anyone else? Okay, Director Sinella?
Back in August, I don't think we talked about this at the last meeting, but I attended the CASA annual conference up in Monterey, and it was a day-and-a-half conference, so I'll just touch on a couple of little takeaways that I had. They had a comprehensive overview of the, and briefing of the California Water Bond. That's obviously the big topic these days. It was very informative. The thing I left, when I left that presentation, yeah, I realized that all of the speakers that they had at the conference regarding the water bond were pro-water bond speakers, and they presented just one side of the story. And I think if you're if the purpose of the conference is to educate versus advocate, it would have been nice to have heard the other side of the story, at least have some sort of give and take on that. But I know that their audience was very much in favor of it, so they had tailored their message for their audience, but I would have liked to have heard the other side a little bit more. And then secondly, just because this reminded me of some of what we're going through, there was a presentation from the Assistant General Manager of the Orange County Sanitation District, Robert Girelli, I think I'm saying his last name right, and he was talking about some of the challenges that they had been going through with regards to communicating with their customers, and he gave a presentation on a recent awareness and outreach program that they implemented, and really highlighted some great success that they had with it. So, I think I even mentioned to President Martin after the presentation, because we were sitting together, that I don't know if there's any relationship there or not, but it was such an impressive.
Oh, we'll reach out.
Yeah, either reach out to him. I was even thought maybe if he was willing to come and present to the rest of the board, because it was definitely showed the value of having an effective outreach program.
Okay.
I too was at the Water Council meeting yesterday with regard to the chamber, San Diego Chamber. I was quite surprised, quite frankly, that they had a whole committee on energy and water, and in fact, San Diego County Water Authority and Metropolitan are
Both
members of that. So, I mean, I know they're the big fish, so I suspect that's perhaps why they're not going to be a member of every chamber who may have an energy and water subcommittee, but it was informative, and so at least we know they are supportive of it.
Well, you gotta remember, like he spoke to, or the gal spoke to, I forgot her name, when you go back to the 90, 91, 92, when we were going into that drought, that's, prior to that, water was not an issue.
Yeah.
You know, the same old story, out of sight, out of mind. The ignorance is bliss, but they did, and you always see it at the Water Authority. Not again, never again, all the quotes out of the newspapers in 93. That's when the chamber really got behind it, but they also got behind it from all the biotech and all that other aspect of San Diego County, because you've got, billion-dollar industry that needs water. So they were sitting there suddenly like, oh wow, if we don't have it,
Yeah.
you lose a lot. And remember, we're at the end of the pipe. We are at the end.
Both pipes.
Okay,
Pipes.
I'll mention that I was also at CAWA, and it was a very interesting conversation that was had about that from the chamber. And they're a 3,000 member strong chamber. They're a very large chamber. It's a regional chamber. And as a matter of fact, their CEO is past mayor.
Jerry Sanders.
Jerry Sanders.
Yeah.
So very, very strong. But there's a lot of business that are compelled to need water, bottling companies, beer companies.
Oh.
The amount of water that we have. Right
There's a lot of microbrewers in San Diego County.
So, a lot. So that was one. The other one was CASA that I attended, and I too, with the Director Sinella, and of course Tom was up at that as well with us. I was really amazed at how much they were talking about water and the water bond, considering that's a sanitation. But it really was what they were trying to push and make everyone believe in. And the only questions that I brought up, of course, were, Metropolitan built Diamond, and we just did a raise on San Vicente, and we didn't get any bond money. That went on the backs of our ratepayers. So do we get reimbursement for that? Or are those same ratepayers that we have that spent all that money now being asked to pass a bond because Northern and Central California didn't do that, so they're gonna get to pay again? So I asked a few people, and of course, there were no answers to it, but that's the reality I take away from the bond, is that Met and its agencies, San Diego County Water Authority, all did their job, you know, over the last 15 years. When they're up there, they were going, oh, we got plenty of water, you know, and now we're being asked as ratepayers to pay again. So it's another way of looking at it. But I think we all really want the bond to pass, blah, 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 but there's a way to look at it. Anyhow, that's where I got La Casa. I also attended UWI, which is the Urban Water Institute down in San Diego. Again, that was very interesting. And the biggest takeaway from that, which I've been preaching since then, which is like a month ago, was that everyone was talking about El Nino, El Nino, El Nino, El Nino, and the biggest takeaway was the wettest year we ever had was during El Nino, and the driest year we ever had was during El Nino. It's not the El Nino effect. It has a lot more to do with the jet stream than it does with the water getting warmer. So I thought that was interesting. That was from two different meteorologists at two different occasions, so they were pretty honest about it. And that's the three, yes, sir.
Are you ready another?
No, that's oh, and yesterday morning, Lisa and James did a engagement over for the Chamber of Commerce / BBN, Business Builders, not BBN, yeah, BBN Builders, over at
Broken
what
Yoke.
restaurant?
Broken Yoke.
Broken Yoke, for which they got cold food, I understand, because they talked for so long, and people didn't want them to leave. So it was a really good interface back and forth. They did a great job, and I was impressed hearing it. I wasn't there, I was in Kawa, but I heard it from the CEO, Pam, who said they were just awesome, and they will be invited back in another 2 or 3 months.
Good. Good to hear.
So, but it was really, really very good. Sorry, that's it. Thank you. Director Evans?
Thank you, President Martin. I really just want to make a comment on your comment about the water bond, and that was partly what I was trying to say at the last meeting, that it's true, we could look at the water bond, that our district is going to be paying for stuff in the north, but the nice thing, if you really look at the bond, is there is a huge proportion of money, I forget the number, 734 million or something, that's designated to San Diego County. And that's partly what is the phenomenal thing about this bond, is that both sides in the political arena got together, they pulled out the earmarking for the Delta in particular, and have tried to split it up so it is not just for one particular place, but it's for all of us, and it's really important we don't give up 734 million. I guess it's something in that, I don't remember the exact amount, for storage and groundwater and all these things we really need. And it's unfortunate that the other districts weren't as proactive as, I am continually impressed by all of the people and I run into in all the businesses relating to water, whether it's wastewater or recycle or desal, how very forward-thinking Southern California is, and how they have, and our reward to our ratepayers is they paid that money, and that's why we're at level 2 and not level 3, and that we've been, we need to realize we built a strong place to start with, but we still have more to do, just like the pump storage at San Vicente. So, and I respect what you say. It's a great question, but I really think you need to walk away and realize we're not really paying for them, because we are getting a portion, and it's proportionately divided out amongst the number of population. You're welcome.
Anything else? On that? No? Okay. We'll move along then. Possible change to the regular board meeting, 4.1.
Yes, we do have the CSDA conference, which will be highly attended, so you won't have a quorum. I did poll all of the various departments we have as far as payroll, everything else, and there's nothing that is time sensitive as far as having that meeting to have to adjourn to a different date. So unless the board has choice otherwise, I would say we just don't need the board meeting.
Anyone have another opinion on that? No?
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Want a motion or just?
That's all I need. We'll just post that we don't have a quorum, so there won't be a meeting.
Thank you. Okay, North California tour. Northern California tour is coming up. Has anybody, I've been on it.
I've been on it.
Yeah.
Mike probably
I
has.
have not been on it, and I really do want to go on it, however, I cannot go next month.
Yeah, next year. Don't think they have them every year. don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay, director's comments. Director's comments, future agenda items. Does everyone like to see anything on the agenda, and/or do we have a comment about anything that's going on? Director Hernandez.
Future agenda item, please. I would like to have a little more education and a discussion on smart metering. I don't know what happened. I've checked with Ed. Over the evening last night, I had a line, the main line on my water meter that's been there for 15 years, blew apart. Not broke, but the coupling came apart. I don't know why or how, but it must have happened somewhere after 11 o'clock. And so this morning when I got up at 5:30, had no water, and I checked my payment. The first thing I did was check my payment. I paid the bill. I did pay the bill.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I know. I paid. I went right to
time?
right there. I
On time?
made sure about that. So then I said, well, I better go. I walked outside, and oh my goodness gracious, there was water in the backyard, like it was a mud puddle, water coming down, that 1-inch line had been running all night long. And it just sprung in my head, you know, if I had been on a smart meter, perhaps there would have been some bell, whistle, alarm or something that would have beeped off, and I could have perhaps saved a lot of water. And so I would like to see where that goes, and I know the smart meters are out there, so if we could put that on the future agenda.
You bet.
Discussion about smart meters,
Yeah.
what they do.
We'll bring up what's current technology.
Thank
What
you.
they cost. Jim's is twice as much, so.
I may buy one myself.
I'm just thinking maybe there's too much use with the addition of the granny flat.
No,
Too much water.
those people don't drink water.
Oh, yeah?
No.
Kids don't drink
They have
water.
an
No,
out, and they have an
no.
outhouse, right?
Yeah, they do, right. They dip out of the creek that's in the back, that drainage channel.
Okay, we'll bring information forward on
That
that.
takes care of director's comments, I think.
Um,
And then we're gonna move on to closed session, so.
We don't need the closed session. I checked with both councils from Aqua. I'm gonna leave this as a standing item for the second meeting of every month because we're getting closer. If you recall, what was explained was by the end of November-ish, the models be completed, then everything will start looking towards allocations and actions. So since you had your last briefing, nothing's happened, so we don't need
Okay,
it.
and I would add one thing to my report, not knowing that, is just please put down in your calendar, the third Thursday of November, which is the 20th, is the night we're having a sundowner here.
Oh, so a date set? Okay.
Yeah.
You said November 20th?
November 20?
20th, sundowner here, and I'm probably over-optimistic, but I'm assuming we'll have about 150 people.
That'd be great.
We had 70 at the last sundowner, but the one we just had, the one here, but the one we just had 127. We're looking at Panama College this month, and we'll get more of a feel. I think we'll have over 150, so they're becoming more and more popular. And because it's at the water district, I think that's gonna be very popular.
And what date was that, what did you say?
That's the 20th of November. It's moved up, they're usually
Yeah.
on the fourth Thursday,
That's
but
right.
during November and December, it's moved away from the holidays, so
Yeah.
it's the 20th here.
Is that also the CSDA quarterly?
That is also the CSDA. So you have to choose whether to see your constituents. And everyone's invited, obviously. Staff would be lovely to have all of your staff there if they'd like to come, Mr. GM. And that's the only other thing. And with that being said, unless anybody has anything else,
Thank you.
we're done.